Okay, I think we're going to get going. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Amy Rasmussen, CAPE's Executive Director, and I'm really glad to see so many different people here. We've got teachers and artists and donors and some of our school-based partners. We're really excited to see everybody and to present to you this premiere or launch of our Cape Convergence website. Just a few things. If you are interested in asking a question throughout the presentation, please put it in the chat box. We're going to have some time at the end. We also put everybody on mute, and so if you want to speak, either press your spacebar or unmute yourself if you are called on to either present or to ask a question. And third, we are recording the conversation tonight, so it will go up on our YouTube page shortly after the presentation. So please be mindful of that. So again, this is the launch of our Cape Convergence website. We're really excited to share this work with you, which is the culmination of our work that happened during the remote school year of 2020-2021. So we are in the throes of getting back into in-person learning with this current school year. So this is both looking back and sort of maybe an understanding of how we're going to be moving forward with all of our arts integration projects. So we're really glad to have you, and I will turn it over to Mark, who's going to be your tour guide for tonight. Thanks, Mark.
Hello, everyone. You'll have a lot of tour guides this evening. Again, my name is Mark Diaz, Associate Director of Education for in-school programs. And I welcome you again to this evening and to the launch of our Convergence website. As Amy mentioned, this is work from last year. We spent quite a bit of time preparing this website. We'll give you a little background about it, and you'll hear from some of our teams about the work that they did with their students. Cape Convergence is our annual art exhibition of work from our Artist Researcher Partners program, our long-term partnerships program. And Cape Convergence is actually an in-person exhibition, usually in a big exhibition space, but for the past 2 years, we have been doing it online. We've been doing it online through a website with help from ACRE projects, Artists Cooperative Residency and Exhibitions. They worked with us and our teaching artists to co-curate the online iteration for work from the prior year. And then we have changed that collaboration a little bit this year, brought on a web designer, Elsa Hannebarger, who designed the website, which you'll hear from Brandon Phouybanhdyt, Program Coordinator with CAPE, on how that was done. And we also brought back Josh Rios, artist, curator, and educator, who worked with us last year, but now curated this actual website that you'll see this evening. As you'll see 3 projects, but know that there are 40 teams represented, or 40 classrooms represented in this website. So 40 teams that worked on arts integration projects all last year, K through 12, and working with teaching artists, working in all disciplines. As I mentioned, after you'll hear from me, you'll hear from Brandon about the background, creating the website. And then after Brandon, you'll hear from the 3 teams, and in the order of STEM Magnet Academy will go first. That will be Maggie Sandoval, who's actually who's this upper grade science teacher, and she's been working with us for over 10 years. So we're really like happy that she's still with us. And she will present with Betsy Zasek. And they've actually been partnering together for about 3 years now. And Betsy herself has been with CAPE for 5 years as a teaching artist. Following Maggie and Betsy, you'll hear from Cameras Children's Engineering Elementary School. Marilyn Diaz is the upper grade language arts teacher. She's been with us for 8 years and also been working with Naima Qureshi, teaching artist, for those 8 years. Naima, on the other hand, has been with us for 10 years now as a teaching artist. So happy that she's still with us. And then to wrap up the team presentations, we have Bateman Elementary School. Priscilla Rowe is the first grade teacher. She'll be presenting with Jordan Connect, the teaching artist, and they've been in partnership for 4 years now. So yes, we have very seasoned teams that will be talking about their work. Afterwards, you'll hear from Josh Rios, who'll talk more about the curatorial process, and then we'll have Q&A after all that. All right, so I'm gonna start sharing my screen, and I'm gonna turn it over to our very fabulous program coordinator, Brandon Phouybanhdyt. As soon as I get to my screen share.
I can start anyway. Remember that once more. Good. Oh, awesome. Yeah, my name is Brandon Phouybanhdyt. I'm one of the program coordinators with CAPE. I work under Mark, and I mainly help supervise our in-school projects, such as the Artist Researcher Partners Program. And I helped kind of, as part of this process of like curation and helping create everything for this alongside Josh, Elsa, and Mark. So creating the Convergence 2021 exhibit came after a lot of reflection from the Convergence 2020 exhibit from the year before. Like Mark was saying, our typical Convergence exhibits are typically built over several iterations and group PDs where we have collaborative and curatorial and curation sort of efforts and activities where people are actively moving around within the space and moving their students' work across the room and across different spaces to sort of create theming. Obviously, with the state of the pandemic and having the 2020 to 2021 school year be completely remote, we had to sort of think about how we worked in the year before, which mostly felt like trying to just translate that physical experience to how do we create something unique that works online. And the collaborative process mainly moved to Mark, Josh, Elsa, and I, where we took it upon ourselves to sort of collect and sort all of the project documentation that you'll see on the Convergence website, writing project summaries, and then working through the design of all the components on the website. So we tried our best to think of how we as internet users think about websites and navigate online spaces. But we also try to think about how we as artists, curators, or art historians think about galleries, exhibitions, and art spaces and how we navigate those. And we tried to think about the elements that make up an exhibition or a curated show. And we try to think of how that could apply in an online space that felt unique while also still blending those elements of thing and very real elements of looking at the show through a website. So we ultimately decided on using what you can see there as like a natural language form. So what it is it takes a pre-existing phrase. In this case, I want to see work from any school about any theme related to any subject. And it lets the users sort through the themes and subjects that teams were exploring that year. It was an active decision to not include medium, since so many of our artists tend to work across disciplines in media. The work of sort of creating the themes and subjects came from discussions with Mark, Josh, Elsa, and I. And we were trying to think of categories that wouldn't restrict projects to only one theme or one category subject, because these projects tended to go across so many different courses or integrate different ideas. And once we had gotten the website into a usable state, we ended up sharing the work that we had done with the artists and teachers at a professional development meeting, where they gave us the feedback on any projects and were allowed to let us know if we had to fix any images or text that was either inaccurate or inauthentic to their class's experience. Overall, the online exhibition, I thought, was a rewarding and difficult experience. And I think it gave all of us insight into a burgeoning and contemporary digital art and exhibition practice. And I think some of the things that we learned or understood while making the Convergence 2021 exhibit will permeate and be seen in some sort of fashion in any of our future exhibits. Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. I will now go to STEM Magnets site. And I will turn it over to Maggie and Betsy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie. As Mark mentioned, I have worked with CAPE for over 10 years. I've kind of, wherever I've gone within CPS, I've brought CAPE along with me. It has been a wonderful experience for myself as a teacher and for my students. And so this year, I'm sorry, Betsy.
So we had a course that dealt with chemistry and with painting. And so our big idea was transformation. And as you can see, our questions are, how do we guide transformations in our art/lab? And how do we guide them in ourselves? Should we just dive in, Maggie?
Yeah, I mean, I can mention a little bit about STEM if you want. I didn't know if you wanted to introduce yourself at all. Give a little bit of your background.
Oh, I'm Maggie's teaching artist. I have been with CAPE for 5 years. I have a lot of projects on the site, and they're all very, very different and a little bit hard to, they're just all independent projects. So I'm not going to try too hard on myself. Let's jump in.
Yeah, so STEM Magnet is one of the first STEM schools in the Chicago Public School, and we service about 400 students, K-8. And so one of the things as the 6th through 8th science teacher that I love to do is to bring art into the classroom. We already do a lot of really hands-on work in science and engineering, but tying in art has always been something that has been amazing to do with our students. And so in this unit, this is a chemical reactions unit that we do in the 7th grade. And I'll also mention that I had these same students, I see them for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so I had, well, about half a year with them in person, and then we went remote because of COVID. And so we did our first unit with Miss Betsy remote, and this was our second remote unit with Miss Betsy. And so we had a little bit of practice doing some science and art remotely. But I think we definitely knocked it out of the park with this one. It's been one of my favorite units to work on. And so these students, I had 1 year already. And so we've had a lot of the basic science, safety and lab work that we do in the classroom. They already had some of that, some of those basics in their tool belt. So we were trying to take advantage of that and have them kind of turn their home into a lab. And Miss Betsy was amazing because she was able to put together a pack of materials for our students. And I don't know if Miss Betsy, do you want to mention some of the things that you put in there?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things about this project is that it was entirely remote, but I don't really think you can tell by looking at any of the documentation. And Mark, maybe we can pop in and enlarge some of these student pictures. So we had a supply bag that included copper tin foil, some agents for changing the patinas, plastic bags. There was like ammonia and vinegar and salt in them, and a little bit of heavy chemicals, paint sets, extra pieces of paper, a lovely tray for containing it, since we know parents will appreciate that. And so we gave them everything they needed to set up their own art lab at home. And, were there a little bit of things that were kind of strange about that, like buying 30 individual liters of ammonia and putting them in bags to give to youth? Absolutely. But did it more or less work out? It worked out brilliantly, And the more we called it a lab instead of a project or an assignment, the more the kids' agency leveled up, right? Like Miss Sandoval had all of these really great, she had gloves and she had goggles, and because our kids had done labs before, they were all like, oh, we're going to take all of these safety precautions really seriously. Should I think about my sibling who has asthma or something? I'm like, yeah, sure. So they were like really ready to take all these steps. And then we just kind of allowed that agency to drift into the art and into their like understanding of the science that applied with it. So by like really zeroing in on observation, we were able to combine art and science skills so that when you're using painting mediums, you're also using them to see what chemical reactions look like, either in a literal way or a not so literal way. So we did this copper plate patina experiment. I think that was our first day with the kids, actually.
Yeah, I think on the first day we were looking at different items within their home and working on making observations and words that we can use to make observations, just because in science, and I'm sure in art, you'd like to be very specific with the wording that you use. And so we talked about that. And I think this may have been like the second or third session that we worked with them on, where they did the mixing of the copper with the ammonia. And I think there was another bag with copper and vinegar. And that took, I think we gave it a couple of days to kind of sit. And then I think you can go through after making observations on digital charts that they had in their Google Classroom. We then took those pieces and they were able to cut them. Did we use regular scissors? I think it was just regular scissors that they used to cut them, right?
I think it worked with regular scissors, yeah.
And then take those pieces and arrange them to form their own works of art. I think one of the first couple of pictures has some of the artwork. Or is it towards the bottom?
So there's like really two major concentrations of work. The first is this copper project where we did really a straight up lab, right? And then we used the lab materials to create pieces of art, like very painterly collages with mixed materials. The metal was like wrapped in fabric, which also took on these patina colors. And then we sort of restarted with the same ideas and different materials. And then we were adding different substances to watercolor paints. And we were still labeling meticulously because this is science. And then I'd introduced maybe 6 possibilities to them, and then they had to think of 2 more. And then we came back later and had them do their own investigations, their own art pieces to kind of make sense of what they could do with it. And eventually they chose one of these pieces and curated it into a digital art show where they were able to say what their art was actually about to them, what their message was, what they learned, what they observed. And they really, really knocked that out of the park. I was so proud of them. So these paintings are from there. I feel like that's really the only way you can tell this was online. It's because we have what are clearly digital images taken by students, but I really love it. The gluey discoloration, the mess, the full moon. These are their titles. I think we're coming in right at time, right?
Yeah, this particular picture that's on the screen, that's called Mystical Desire. They were very creative with their names. I know that she used watercolor for this and then used sprinkles of salt on it as well. And it was interesting to see how that not only did they learn about using these different art techniques and using different things, substances around their home to create art, but they also were learning about like making mistakes. And one of the reflections that she had written in this for this particular piece was that she said, I learned that mistakes can turn into beautiful artwork and that the mistakes are what make that artwork very special. And so I think that's one of the things that in science and engineering, I also try to push a lot with the kids is that it's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes our best growth and learning happen from making those mistakes. And so to see that also reflected as something that was learned by a student through the work that we did with Miss Betsy, I thought was great.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Betsy. I think now we'll go to cameras. Marilyn and Naima, and this is their project, Digital Disruptors.
Thank you, Mark. I'll introduce myself first, and then I'll pass it over to Marilyn. My name is Naima Qureshi, and it's really nice to be here today. I am an interdisciplinary teaching artist, and as Mark said, I've been working with CAPE for a little over 10 years. And I've had long-term collaborations with a high school science teacher, 4th grade classroom teacher, and again, as Mark said, Marilyn Diaz and I, who teaches language arts and social studies, we've been collaborating together for about 8 years. And I also lecture at the School of the Art Institute in their art education department. And my arts practice and teaching, I'm really interested in how to use new technologies in expressive ways. So I'll pass it over to Marilyn now.
Thank you, Naima. Good evening, everyone. I'm Marilyn Diaz. I am the 7th grade bilingual ELA and social science teacher here at Marvin Cameras Children's Engineering School. I've been with CAPE, like Mark said earlier, 8 years. This is my 8th year. And all of those wonderful 8 years have been with Naima as my teaching partner. And every single year, our project is completely different. We start off with a play on projects that we've done before, but Naima works her magic and we get these very, very unique projects year after year. I've been with CPS for 27 years. This is my 27th. And I am a product of CPS. I went to grammar school and high school in CPS, and I've been back. No one can get me out. So a little background about Marvin Cameras. We are one of the, I believe it's one of 2 or maybe at this point 3 engineering schools we have in the city, CPS has in the city. And so it's been slow going, but we are slowly incorporating engineering habits of mind throughout all of our curricula. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to teach science or math, so I have to try to find a way to incorporate STEM into, and engineering into my language arts and social studies, however I can. So completing this project with Naima is wonderful because it's a great opportunity to be able to take the content of language arts in this case and blend it with STEM and art, and and then in the end, students have this fantastic artwork, piece of art. My students are bilingual students, and so some years we've worked with classes that have students who are non-English speakers. And so there's been a lot of translating going on, but in the end, the learning that happens regardless of language is the same. And it's really refreshing to see, students really light up and ask, is Mrs. Qureshi coming in today? With our project from last year, our big idea was, our big idea was disrupting video game narrative. And so what we did was we incorporated language arts into coding and pixelating drawings. And in this case, actually, it's not coding, but using Piskel, the Piskel app, to animate a 8-bit drawing that students created. Our inquiry question was, how can introducing a new character into an existing video game disrupt the narrative? And so we had students go in and, brainstorm their favorite video games. And from those video games, we analyzed the storylines in those video games. Some video games obviously didn't have much of a storyline, but those that did, we took that language arts part of it, I call it a pyramid, looked at what the setting was and what the rising action is and what the climax is. And so taking that narrative arc and seeing how we could put in the storyline within the games into that narrative arc. Then students were tasked to finding a place where they can create a new character and disrupt in a positive way, in a positive way, disrupt the narrative of that particular video game. And so what you see here are students in various planning and stages of their projects. So we have students who, we have the sketch, and then we have the student transposing that, into a, using, help me, Mrs. Qureshi.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll step in now. Thank you so much, Marilyn.
No problem.
That's awesome. So, so as Marilyn said, for our inquiry process, we really wanted to create a project that would allow students the opportunity to look at video games through a critical lens, because our entire collaboration was taught remotely, and we thought that they were probably playing a lot of video games during that time. And we actually took a poll before we started, and we found out that about 90% of them, right, Marilyn, were playing, said they were playing video games. So we thought that would be a great way to engage them, because teachers were saying how much trouble they were having remotely, having students put their cameras on and participating. And so we really wanted to lead a project that would allow students to guide us and lead us and take ownership of the project. So we, like Marilyn said, we use elements of narrative structure to discuss the storylines and characters of some of their favorite games. They talked about a lot of commercial video games, but we also introduced them to independent video games and artists that create video games within their arts practice. And so that way it gave them the opportunity to think about, for example, maybe like stereotypes in video games, or maybe, video games could cover, for example, just kind of broaden their thinking about what video games could be about. And again, like looking at the games they play critically. So we took this idea of using this grid format, so this digital format, but we explored it in different ways. So students had the opportunity to, first of all, use graph paper to design a character, so invent a new character. They drew it out first, and they used the grid of the graph paper. Then they translated that into, if they wanted to, into a cross-stitch pattern using a plastic grid mesh. And then we took that further and helped them to digitally animate. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, so you can see here how they're using, they're translating their image from graph paper onto the plastic mesh. And they thought that was really interesting, because we had introduced them to pixel art and how that can be in so many different forms. And then they had the opportunity, as Marilyn said, to use Piskel app, the software, and to digitally animate their characters. And this really, kind of like this gave them the opportunity to, we think give them a lot of choice in the kind of materials they wanted to use and what they wanted to focus on. But that grid helped us to kind of weave the art material or the art making throughout the project. Mark, how much time do we have? Should I keep going, or? Oh, 2 minutes, okay. And so for example, what students did was, one of the hardest things they found was, they said, was inventing a new character. And at first they thought, oh, it's going to be really easy. But they were appropriating a lot of images. And so we had a really great discussion about, one of the images that Mark showed earlier on, where there's a character playing guitar. And that was just a student just copied an image that they saw online. And we had a great discussion about that, and about how important it was to, develop your own characters and invent them, and how you would do that. And so students, they found it initially frustrating, but they kept revising and then refining their ideas, getting feedback from one another. So this student, what they did was combined 2 different characters from a video game to create to create a new character. And then some students created an entirely different character that they thought would, for example, this one where the student talked about, finding playing video games that lonely sometimes. They talked about playing Minecraft a lot, and they wanted to create this character, which was really, they used colors that were bright and bold so that the player would find kind of enjoyment out of using this character in their game. And they also talked about how it was kind of personally, it made the game more personally meaningful to them once they had created their own character. I'm trying to rush to Marilyn. Am I missing anything? Is there anything you want to add?
No, I just wanted to add that along the same lines of them creating their own character, when they were interjecting them into the storyline, for example, the ghost dog, their characters were created to bring on something positive in the game. So for example, the ghost dog was there to help the player be protected throughout certain parts of the video game. So it was extra protection. Or some students created a character that would give you more health in the game or things like that. So they were disrupting the narrative of the story, but in a positive way for the player.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we've used up our time, so we'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's see, do we have, I'm wondering if they probably had difficulty making it tonight. Is Priscilla and Jordan in the audience? Are you there? What? No? Okay. I don't think they made it this evening. Okay. So I guess we could move on to Josh.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'll just keep my kind of comments brief. That way there's time for questions and answers. I actually have some questions myself for the two teams that presented, and I'm excited to kind of delve into some of the kind of like philosophies or, that you're kind of bringing to your projects through collaborating, especially through collaboration with art and with other disciplines like the sciences or the language arts as well. But at any rate, my name is Josh Rios. I teach at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I'm a contemporary artist. Practice includes kinds of discursive activities and like curation. So curatorial kind of activities are part of my practice as an artist. And I just wanted to just really honestly just say that it was really a kind of great honor to be part of the team presenting the projects that are outlined on the website. And to really learn from the CAPE community and all the various collaborators that constitute the CAPE community. As an educator and artist myself, I gleaned something significant from each of the many inquiries and student engagements that are presented on this site. Clearly the last few years have been extremely challenging for many, many reasons. And the already existing social cultural inequities that exist have been sharpened, right, over the course of the global pandemic. So I just really want to praise and deliver much deserved praise to the remarkable CAPE teaching artists who pivoted, experimented, and adapted their understandings and practices in accordance with so many unknown and developing protocols, all while centering the students' diverse needs and really you can see that in each and every project, that there's so much care about being kind of produced around how students are experiencing their world, how they're making sense out of it, and what they're learning to move forward. Creativity, clearly for me, but I can see that this is clear for everyone involved in this project. Creativity is such a central part of everyday life, which means it doesn't need to be the exclusive domain of the fine art worlds, So how we make sense of the world around us involves creativity. How we imagine the possibilities of other worlds involves creativity. And CAPE and the projects featured here showcase the value and the interrelated qualities of creative expression with critical thinking, and just how impactful those concepts for young people are when they're trying to make sense of their world and even imagine different kinds of worlds. So I don't know, I just have like tons of congratulations for everyone involved, including the teaching artists, the curatorial team members that I was part of, and to the students as well, and to the parents and the supporting family members, whether they're biological or chosen. So, as our schedules became increasingly complex, it was always a pleasure to work with Mark, Brandon, and Elsa on this project, and to contribute in, my way to its curatorial frameworks, and to a lesser degree to its design. I enjoyed tremendously reading through each project description, but also the kind of less glamorous various texts that surround each project. The big ideas questions, the inquiry questions, the question on how to engage students in the inquiry process, the descriptions of how projects leverage student agency, and all of that stuff that's kind of more, what would you call that? I don't know, there's kind of satellites of text that are kind of circulating the project description, right? So we were all really trying to balance a set of organizing themes, as well as understand how all of these projects are not easily contained within some kind of clear taxonomy of thematic kind of structure that you would normally, find. So we really are trying, part of the the first iteration of the Convergence site was to try to translate some of the key elements that make an exhibition into a different kind of context, online context. And so we isolated in some ways, or kind of defined some things that we thought were really important about exhibitions. It was outside of, say, like, I like the art, that's important, I suppose, or I don't like the art. But there's other things that are, I think, more kind of structurally important, like the way that a meaning comes out of things being in proximity to each other, for example. How viewers have the power and agency to pick their own pathway through an exhibition, thus building up their own personal meaning through the sequence of things that they're kind of being exposed to or exposing themselves to. And also thinking about the exhibition as a kind of celebration in and of itself, a way to, be to kind of bask in a lot of hard work and to have people acknowledge that work publicly. So we wanted to bring those kinds of frameworks and thought processes to this exhibition, as an online exhibition, hence the kind of drop-down menus and the way that things can be paired up through a number of different, I guess, like ordering tags or ordering themes. So that's really kind of all I wanted to say. So I can turn it back over to you, Mark, if you wanted to kind of move on, or maybe you had some questions for me. I don't know if that was adequate. I hope so.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Josh. It looks like our other presenters joined the room, so we're going to give them the floor for the next 5 minutes, and hopefully we'll still have time for some questions. We have from Bateman, Priscilla Rowe, first grade teacher, and Jordan Connect, teaching artist. And I'm going to show their contribution to the work this year.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Priscilla Rowe. I teach first grade at Bateman here. I have been teaching first grade for the last 7 years and have been fortunate and very, very lucky to be partnered and working with Jordan for the last 4. 2 of them remote and 2 of them in person.
Hi, I'm Jordan Connect, also privileged and happy to be working with Priscilla for so long. We're both really excited to get to share a little bit about what happened last year. Maybe we can start with that. Priscilla, I mean, we work with first graders, and in the past we've worked a lot with failure and mistake making, but that didn't really seem, there was so much of that already happening in the year that we decided to aim more towards the question, what are ways we can connect with each other? Because it felt like we could use our imaginations collectively to connect through art, through the things that we're studying, and just find a lot of different ways to stay in touch.
Yeah, for us, we took this opportunity to really not just engage with our students academically and through the arts, but also really tap into their social emotional needs. And starting first grade, I mean, I don't know, but I think this is the coolest grade and the most fun. And so starting first grade and having to do it through a screen was really tough. And, you know, having to have them engage and connect with me as a teacher, with Jordan as an artist, and even with their classmates was something that we knew was missing. And we really wanted to tap into that and have them understand that there's more ways to connect than just being physically in the same room. And they can be equally empowering and fun.
Yeah, as we were thinking about these different ways of staying connected, the way we began was to take some of that in person by exploring how the USPS works. And so we had them, we were like, we're gonna send letters. How does that work? And so we got to even have time where everyone got to hear each other's voices, sharing how they imagined a letter got from one place to the next. And we got to look at stamps and be like, why does this work? How does that work? What is, just constantly asking questions, beginning with questions, and then sometimes answering them, and sometimes answering them for ourselves. And so Priscilla ended up, I led them in writing letters because I was living in different states entirely, so they couldn't even see me down the street. And so we were thinking about how can we all stay in touch. And Priscilla ended up installing a mailbox at the school so that once we made our postcards, students could walk over and deliver them in person, so that this digital connection still had physical elements.
It's true. And they were able to also kind of empower themselves in this whole idea of the system that's bigger than us, right? The postal office being bigger than us, the creation of stamps being these concepts that are hard to grasp for them. They were also able to gain some agency and create their own stamps and their own cards and make even their own postal system with our help outside of the classroom, which was really empowering to them. You know, they got to work through the whole process and being the makers of it while remaining connected.
Yeah, so another way we stayed connected was that Priscilla did an incredible job of making sure that everyone had the same resources. And so every student had these kits of different art making tools, and through that we were able to explore feelings. We were able to always, the way Priscilla and I work is that we improvise a lot, and so we're constantly in contact being like, what do the students need now versus what they needed yesterday, or it's always changing. So we don't ever plan too far in advance because we want to be responsive to the interests and inquiries of students, but also the needs of them. And so we did a lot of pivoting, and sometimes we'd have a plan and then everything would be derailed. And we just found different ways to keep doing stuff. As I'm looking down this Convergence page, which is so beautiful, thank you all again for all this work. I'm being shoved through different memories where when we were doing sonic explorations, I was in Detroit, and we were having students singing over their microphones and then seeing how their voices are vibrating in sound waves. And we did a lot of work with emojis, thinking about how people can convey feeling through images, and then used those kits so that students had to make them and they could see how their friends and classmates were doing these problem-solving activities with the same exact resources and having them turn out totally different.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, as we go and we're going through these memories, one of the activities that we did was called There's No Such Thing as a Dragon. And that was a big pivot that we did as well. And we did that pivot because we were noticing that a lot of our little friends were sort of having all these emotions on screen, and they would stay muted but show us. Like, they would be like, while we're teaching or while we're talking about something, and we're like, there's something there, right? And so this was a moment where we not only incorporated literature, but then also incorporated directive drawing and art by having them create their own dragon, this feelings of dragon that they might have inside of them. And that was a way where they were able to kind of explore in the moment what they were feeling and understand that there's more ways to show it than just one in this like physical way. You can also put it down on paper. And again, another way for us to connect, because then we shared all of our dragons and we made connections about how his dragon was similar to mine. Is it because we're feeling similar ways? And this really helped one of our students who is autistic and really had a way to connect again without having to verbally be able to speak. He was able to see portions of himself and his dragon in his friends' dragons as well. And I thought that was a really powerful moment. I will say an update to that student is that student would never touch us or hug us. I got a hug this year, and that same day I went and bought a lotto ticket. Just saying, because he left me hanging a few times. I thought he was coming in for one, and then we both were like, oh no. And I finally got one this year. It's been a year and a half since all of this, but it was a good day. So this obviously impacted him. He knows that it is a free and safe space with us, and that we're always going to be looking out for what he needs, even if it doesn't match up with what we have planned. And I thought that was a really great, something really great that always comes out of Jordan and I working together here.
I feel like that's a great place to wrap for us. Thanks so much for letting us share with y'all.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great stories there. I want to, I have a lot of questions, but I'm just gonna ask one question for all the teams, all the presenters, and it's just it's so interesting to see your work, that work that you did online, and how that the strategy has been really to make things to simplify instruction online, because it was so challenging to do all these activities. But as you all were talking about your projects, you were really dealing with like very challenging concepts for students who were like in one space, right? And separate spaces, like this notion of like what's correspondence and, you know, connection in mail, like these and ways in which that we don't really like, or it's not popular to kind of actually communicate with mail, right? This is very interesting. The idea of disrupting narrative, like, well, you know, what does that mean to a student? Like understanding narrative, and also just thinking about the these kind of chemical reactions that the students are doing at home, and how to kind of make sense of these interactions and the causal relationships that they're kind of identifying, but they're just doing that on their own. I was just wondering if anyone can want to share, like, how, if they sense that some of the material that they were working with is even more challenging for students that they were at home, but at the same time, some of your instruction was just kind of pared down and simplified.
Well, I know with the cross stitching, Naima was a trooper and really went ahead and, stuck with the, in that packet, the kids had everything they needed for cross stitching. And yeah, because we were remote, she had to we did it in small groups. So she would take a breakout room and work with students who were ready to begin the cross-stitching process, and she would walk them through that. So I guess that's the modification where in person, I'm trying to think back, and I think we also did it when we were in person. We also worked with small groups. It was just, we were in person. But yeah, I thought that was really brave. And the kids really learned, her instruction, instead of in person showing them step by step, was through video and through images, show them how to cross stitch step by step. So definitely something that makes you realize, oh, yeah, this is definitely different. But the kids got so much out of it. Definitely got so much out of it.
Thanks, Marilyn. I was just going to quickly add that to me, what was really interesting was the persistence that the students showed in the different stages of our projects, with the drawing and translating the drawing into a cross-stitch pattern and then doing it digitally. And we had such a hard time getting them to write reflection sheets, to write comments, but the art making process, I found that they were really pushing themselves, and they kept revising and editing their ideas. So I thought that was really interesting.
In our chemical reactions unit, one of the things that we also did after the kids did the work with the copper and the vinegar and the ammonia, we also took advantage of trying to get them outside during this time when they were supposed to be stuck at home. We're like, this is a great time for you to take a walk, and maybe if you go out with your parents in the car, look around, see what sorts of real life examples you see out there. And so trying to take advantage of them not being stuck in the school building, and getting out with their parents to be able to see those real life connections to what we were doing and chemical reactions that happen around them.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit about that too. Like, we never really tried to simplify things any extra when we were thinking about chemical reactions. I think what we asked them to do is to show us more ways that it's relevant to them. Take a picture of it in your yard, in your neighborhood, wherever. We did an experiment, and some people obviously got more results than others, because that's how science is when you don't control every variable. I just feel like we just kept celebrating that. It's just going to come out differently, and we're just all going to keep noticing. And so I don't think we changed the material. I think we just kind of loosened the backside of the expectations, and then we could just kind of watch them take things in a lot of different directions and just corral it into an online conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. I was wondering if I could turn it over to Josh. I know that you had some questions. I think we have time for one more question, right? Or maybe two. Let's see.
Yeah, I just was curious to hear from I kind of was particularly struck by what Maggie had said about I've been kind of continuing to bring Cape along with me everywhere I go. Was that correct? Did I remember that correctly? Yes. Okay. So I just was curious, like, why? What is the drive behind that? Or how do you think, why is the creative sort of framework necessary, or what does it bring? Or why do you know what I mean? That's really it. I was just curious about that.
I mean, I feel like it brings thinking outside of the box. I think that there's a lot of structure to our science curriculum, and there's a lot that you kind of have to stick to by the book sometimes, and depending on what school you're working in CPS. And CAPE kind of allows you that freedom to expand what you're doing within the classroom and within the work that you're doing with the students and what they're learning. And so art is an amazing way to incorporate, it's an amazing thing to incorporate into any subject area. And so I think that that is one of the things that I love about it, is that we're not just stuck to doing one thing. And every time I've done a new CAPE unit, it's been something completely different, even if I've worked with the same artist for a couple of years. And so it always is a learning experience for me too. So that's one of the things I enjoy about it.
Yeah, I wonder if some other teachers too that would be interested in kind of taking that question up or elaborating on some of some of the things you said, Maggie. I am curious to hear more about that. I think it's fascinating. I don't have anyone specifically in mind, but
I can speak to that a little bit.
Thank you.
I think for me as a teacher, I agree with Maggie. It kind of helps me break that structure of what I'm supposed to teach in the curriculum. And it allows me to be a little more flexible for what the students need and to bring other elements that make me a better teacher and hopefully expand their ways of expression as well. I also think there's having that outlet for them and bringing that into the classroom really just helps them build that love for learning even more and understand that learning isn't just one track type of learning that you can do, that there's many ways to show that you understand concepts or that you can do different things. And people, I always say this in our classroom, we all come here with different strengths, but we all work together to learn from each other. And I think CAPE does an awesome job of really helping us explore and bring those strengths out in our students and in the teachers as well. I, for one, have learned so much partnering with Jordan and other artists in the past.
I agree. I agree with both Maggie and Priscilla. And just the fact that I'm able to bring in a brand new content, and integrate it so seamlessly with my, language arts or social studies, depending on the project. It's just amazing. I'm able to express my love for the sciences, secretly, and sometimes not so secretly. There are times where I am the most excited student in my classroom, and the kids see it, that ability. CAPE, gives me that opportunity to bring in, to kind of seamlessly just, mesh everything together and, show the kids how, these contents, these subjects are not separate. You might study them separately, but they all come together.
Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Mark because I'm not sure what you're thinking about time, but I appreciate all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. We are, it is 5 after, and we really just scheduled an hour for this, but thank you all so much for being here. I want to thank again our fabulous presenters, Maggie, Betsy, Naima, Marilyn. We have Priscilla and Jordan. Thank you so much. Josh, it was great partnering with you and ACRE. This has just been an absolutely wonderful collaboration between our organizations, and hats off to you and Elsa for helping us put this website together. And then I don't know if Kate Bowen is here from ACRE. Thank you. And then Brandon, thank you for helping us organize everything. So it's been wonderful. Brandon was also had a huge role in putting this website together. So we had a great team, and look out for our next Convergence, which is actually, we're going to try to do something this in May, some type of hybrid in-person exhibit / online something. We'll see how it goes.
Watch for a whole bunch of corporeal stuff from Kate coming up.
Yeah.
Kate Embodied once again.